You're listening to Nothing's Off the Table, the podcast where no subject is too taboo to discuss. Now, please welcome your hosts, Andy Barker and Lou Del Pree. Well, that was almost a big whopping oops.
Right.
God. So some of you may have saw that we went live and then we didn't go live and then we went live again and well, here we are. Anyway, welcome back to Nothing's Off the Table.
Hey,
So
how you doing tonight, Andy?
I'm doing well now. I'm doing good, and my blood pressure's come down a little bit from that little oops there. But had a great time again on the Right Mind show with Todd Showalter.
Great dude.
God, it's crazy. The episodes get funnier and funnier. Anyway, if you're not a local St. Louis native, that's okay because you can check his radio show out on News Talk STL. They have a website. You can go there and check the show out. It'll be on Saturday evenings at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. But that's enough for shameless plugs. Lou, what we got going on tonight?
We got a lot going on tonight. First of all, though, I would like to apologize for the live and then getting boot. For those of you that don't know, I play Call of Duty, and Call of Duty announced 2 weeks ago they will have AI chat monitoring.
I saw that. I saw
yes.
that. Don't make racist comments.
So, you know what? You know, since you commented, Cool Breeze, I'll introduce you. So we brought in Cool Breeze today, which we hope is going to be, you know, possibly, you know, a reoccurring guest on here, data analytics, and what I think is a not first time ever. Andy, correct me if I'm wrong. You know, we were going to go forward with a data show, but we had so much fun talking in the pre-show. And you know, talking about all these things and everything that's going on that, you know, our guest said, you know what, if we're really going to dive deep into a lot of this stuff, let's just keep my name out of it. And we can climb down all the rabbit holes. And I said, absolutely. Let's do it. You know, so if you're a guest and you're a listener, and you want to test our analytics, our data guy out, because you don't believe it, because you can't see him, by all means, shoot us in a question. And we'll show you the deal. But Cool Breeze, how's it going? Thanks for joining us tonight and talking with us about, you know, some things data.
Yeah, well, like the data, which can be voice data, for example, transmitted through a video game that you're playing, and maybe you make some off-color remark, and then the feds are knocking on your door. That kind of data.
So funny you say that. I was getting to it. So I play with a mutual friend of Andy and ours, and he turned his back on me, and what I did was I referred to him in a LGBTQIA2 plus slur, and received a warning. And then he said, and then when I brought up the fact that I just got a warning, like flash across my screen, he said, "Wait a minute, you got a warning for LGBTQIA2 plus, you know, slur?" And then he got the warning.
Oh,
Your kid. So you actually saw this in action, is that right?
Yeah, I got the warning, and when I went to play today earlier in the day, people, I entered every game with my voice automatically shut off. People had to go into the game and purposely turn it back on. Time to find a new game.
No kidding. I mean, we saw that with Facebook, and we saw it with Twitter. Certainly, I mean, yeah, and this gets to real time analysis. This gets to algorithmic driven decision making by these platforms. So clearly they have a policy, they set up certain keywords they're monitoring for, and then they trigger actions, predetermined actions based on that. And I saw that a long time ago. I have to say it was 2011 maybe. A long time ago. I was telling myself not to get political online and on Twitter, in fact, and this is I'm talking about a pretty long time ago in Twitter time, and someone had written that Twitter had quashed the hashtag of Benghazi, and I was like, "Oh, is that true?" Twitter at Twitter, censorship is for Nazis, and 5 minutes later, my Twitter account was suspended. And I had worked hard. I had like 10,000 followers way back then, which is a big deal. You know, you have to do a lot of work to get a following. It's supposed to be a meritocracy, right? A merit-based system. And I said the wrong thing, bucko, and they just bounced me. I guess it was whenever the Benghazi thing went down. I can't remember what year that was. Might have been I don't know. You might even remember, Lewis. But
Yeah.
that whole thing just blew up in my face, and I was absolutely terrified. I was like, "Oh my god!" I had no
What difference
idea.
does it make anyway?
Yeah, right. Well, there you go. And so you're witnessing real time censorship. And what I think is funny is that we've seen the political parties switch, just completely flip in the recent few years, where it used to be the Republicans who said, well, sure, that may be unethical for business to do that, but it's not illegal. So give us a break. And now it's the Democrats doing that. So I was like, wait a minute, you guys switch sides? Did I miss something?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I have to say, dude, I saw that story and I'm just absolutely mortified by it. But
Yes.
go back even further, way back when it was Microsoft through the Xbox, wasn't it? Doing like viewing the room and looking at the room and
X,
watching people in the
Xbox
room.
Move. Oh, I know what you're talking about. So you can watch this. It happened in real time. They were announcing Xbox Move. It was the bar that had a camera, and as they were announcing it, the CEO is saying, "And what's really going to be interesting is how we can see the player and what they're doing when they're playing the game. Like they
Right.
can look into your house, and everybody's like, oh, what?" And he was like, "I mean, but we would never do that." And then they, oh, it was a real time blunder.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
going to shamefully admit that I am probably not going to have a whole heck of a lot to offer in this conversation. As a
why?
wise man once said, I'm not a smart man, Jenny, but I know what love is.
So we agreed ahead of the show, right, with our guest that we wouldn't ask we'd stay away from controversial topics. So Cool Breeze, I just want to ask you, who's your favorite crisis actor?
Probably Nicolas Cage in that last Dracula movie. I thought
Oh,
that
okay.
was
Right,
thought
yeah,
that was
mine,
a little bit strange. I mean, I love Nicolas Cage. I think he's awesome. He spent a lot of time partying in New Orleans, and that's enough to love about the man. Actually heard some story from a guy, our buddy Chris Abergus, who my wife is here, who actually drove him in a taxi the night that it was reported he was in a taxi being driven away from some scene of a fight he had with his girlfriend or something or other. But yeah, I saw that movie of him playing Dracula. It
yes,
was so gross. And
Renfield.
if I am the superintendent of the police department in New Orleans, I would be PO'd at that. Even though yes, there are bad cops from New Orleans. I mean, the cops in New Orleans got busted guarding the heroin warehouse years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh,
that's how deep some of those guys have gone.
yeah.
Is they're
Well,
just, some of them, but not all of them, dude. There are a lot of good cops out there. And the movie just, again, just like plays out these narratives. And so anyway, he's my favorite crisis actor, if you will.
my favorite is David Hogg. So,
Oh,
no, let me just be clear. Let me just be clear. I'm not saying Sandy Hook didn't happen. I'm just saying David Hogg's a crisis actor,
All I'm saying is he's gonna be
or non-binary. I can't tell
he's gonna
the.
be popular in prison because Hog isn't his last name. That's his nickname, if you know what I'm saying.
that is inappropriate.
Well, thank you. That's what I do. They call me Captain Inappropriate for a reason.
That's right. When you work
That's
in jail, they say just get your corduroy stretched. That's a
well,
prison term.
you would know, Lewis. You would
I
know about
would. I
those
would.
about those jail stories.
Someday they'll hire me.
For most people, it's in the abstract. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, what can I say? I've seen some really interesting videos lately about the folks responding to recent events, and one of the guys, I can't bring myself to do the exact quote because it's inappropriate for a man who's of my persuasion to say these things. But he's basically, I'll paraphrase. He's like, every brother got to go to jail at least once. Every real brother got to go to jail at least one time. And this guy goes, how you going to go ahead and book Trump? When he win that election in 24, you think he ain't going to spin the block? You think he ain't going to double back? He's like, how you go trying to lock up my boy Trump?
Yeah.
And I'm watching this. I'm not gonna lie, it's gleeful to see some of these folks get so passionate about what they've seen in their lives and what they've experienced. And who was the one guy? I think he's from California. He's smoking his cigar, his blunt, as he speaks into the camera, and he's like, "Hey," he said to the administration, "We don't like you." Like, we don't trust the government. Like, FYI, like any message you're sending through social media channels of how you care about us, we don't believe you, and we never did. And now all of a sudden they see this guy get booked in Fulton County, gets the mugshot,
Oh,
and you're
that's
just
right.
like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah. And
wow.
it's just it's very amazing. And going back to sort of our original topic, right? If we'll dial it back, people, when Trump came about, he turned people on to the deep state, right? Down conservatives, like, wow, this is a pit. But I think most people who work in government know there is a nefarious part of the pit, but then there's also a very incompetent part of the pit that looks nefarious, but it's just simply incompetent. There's nothing there. There's nothing there,
Well, or
including
it's
intelligence.
a system. Here's the thing, right? That there are these cultural tendencies which influence behavior, and this is like systems thinking, right? Or
Right, the
systems
data. That's what I was
philosophy.
trying to get to. How they're collecting and using it against us.
Well, so I mean, this is the thing about having an inside and an outside. And when like I was thinking about this today, I was talking to a guy who runs a big federal government media organization to kind of track what the feds do. And we were discussing how news gets determined and disseminated and played out. And what I was explaining to him is that what we're about to experience here in this world is absolutely massive and deeply fundamentally game changing because of these new large language models, these new AI engines that are being unveiled everywhere, which are very, very powerful, but they are black boxes at this point in time. But the point is that if you remember back in the a number of years ago, Microsoft rolled out their first AI chatbot on Twitter, Tay. He was called Tay, and he started barking racist epithets back at people who were tweeting to him.
Yes,
And
anti-Semitic, right?
they were like, whoa, hey, we got to shut that down. And so they
That's
took it
right.
offline and they all freaked out. And everyone was like, oh, it's biased. It's biased. This is terrible. It's biased. Okay. Is it really biased? People are saying ChatGPT is biased. And it's like, is it really biased? These engines are trained on data that's in the wild. So they're trained on all this data. If you've tweeted on Twitter, your words are in ChatGPT's models most likely. If you tweeted, if so, in terms of data that's being captured about us, anything you post online is being captured by someone and used for some purpose. Now, there are some people advocating for making that open and transparent and sharing the data and all this stuff. And for big corporations, sharing is like your 4-year-old child with his big wheel to the neighbor. It's like, no, you're not going to share this. It's mine. Or like, if I share it, it's I take yours. It's what the kids mean by share, right? So where I'm going with all this stuff is that yes, your data is being used without question everywhere, and there's not a lot you can do about it except not go online, don't have a cell phone. Like if
Yeah,
you want to really
right.
be disconnected, like don't carry that stuff, and then you are still going to be photographed walking down the street by ring doorbells. I mean, think about all the ring doorbells. Think about what happened, and this is what really scares me, all right? Because I'm in the analytics space, I'm in the data space. I will tell you for sure, yes, your data is all being tracked. A million people are tracking it. They're selling it back and forth all day long, all the time. Now, is that going to be bad news for you? Maybe if you've done terrible things, maybe if they ever get around to tracking you down, sure. But just be mindful that it is happening. There's no question that it's happening, and there's really not a lot you can do about it. Duck, duck, go. All these guys, okay, kind of. But even there's tracking some stuff. I promise you, like it's called observability in the data world these days. And what they're talking about is being able to observe changes in data, changes in state, who's doing things. This is all of it is being tracked, right? So in terms of what you do about that as a human being in the free world, just be cognizant of it and learn how to leverage it. And I'm a big proponent of transparency. I think that we need to know what the government knows. And if I make a run for Congress, which I'm considering, I will say on this show, you're the first to hear about it. Actually, you, Lewis, are the first to hear about it. Transparency is my number one platform because I want to know what they can know. This is what GDPR says. Like technically, GDPR out of the European Union says that you, as a citizen of the EU, can demand of any company that they tell you all the information they have about you. Right? That's what GDPR says. Well, I'm here to tell you that's basically impossible to pull off from a performance perspective. You're not going to be able to do it. It's incredibly challenging. Lots of big companies are trying to do it. They're going to fail because it's almost impossible. But it is happening. It's everywhere. And there's not a lot you can do about it other than learn how to use the new tools and figure out how to leverage this stuff for your benefit because the ship has set sail.
Yeah. And I think what people miss too, that you allude to, is the modeling aspect, the predictability. The companies are tracking everything, but they're also modeling it and adapting it in a predictive manner. And what I mean by
Right.
that is, and I think this, like I said, what you were alluding to, when you switch. Okay, I went from drinking all kinds of beer, right, to getting diabetes and drinking diet soda. Okay, that's a huge shift in my purchase. That's a
Right.
huge shift. So now, the credit card company knows that I'm no longer buying beer. I'm buying, sodas,
Right.
right? But
Right.
they also know that the sodas aren't sold where the beer is sold. So I'm taking a new route now, right? The all this predictive modeling, looking at, what type of car with my budget, with how much I travel, because I switched from beer to Dr. Pepper, and that's how I receive car ads.
Yeah.
It may necessarily not be because I said I'm looking for a car. This
Right.
modeling may have been in the works for a long time.
Well, there's no doubt about that. You're exactly correct. All that data is being captured. I will say that, most of it, the vast majority of it is benign. I mean, first of all, it's going to happen because you have a phone. Like when you walk around, you have to understand that the reason you can actually get calls on your phone is because some system knows it's there, right? I mean, these systems talk to each other. So you can't avoid that, and that's a big part of the equation. But just in general, you're right. I think what we need some regulation or legislation that says you must make these models transparent. And historically, the business world has said, no, we don't want that because that's our intellectual property. That's what gives us competitive advantage. And to a large extent, that is sort of still true. And it certainly used to be true. But going forward, really, execution is what matters the most. And if you look at the open source world with software, that really changed the game. And a lot of the really cool stuff we're seeing now with machine learning and IoT and artificial intelligence spun out of the open source movement. And the open source movement simply said, make your source code available so we can see what it is. We can see the recipe you have for building things. And of course, that starts at Linux as the operating system, but then climbed up the stack. And now there are hundreds of Apache software projects for open source software. It runs the cloud. Open source software runs the cloud. So I think that practically speaking, as they always say, it's better to light a candle than curse the darkness. And I think we need to advocate for transparency in models. I want to know, what are the predictive models that you've been using, XYZ Corporation and XYZ government department? I think to myself, in terms of transparency, think about this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'd love to hear our host thoughts too. Why is there even any more government email? Why isn't every single government communication from a government person to another government person or to the public anonymized? Why is that not all on a social media network where we can all see what happens and therefore know how the government is run? Imagine what that would do if you just turn the whole thing inside out and every government communication is required to go through a system. We have the technology, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. It's, you can just build your own these days and make it completely open source. Why not say every single communication to do with the federal government and local and state governments too? Why not be through portal that anyone can log into and see any part of any time? It's our money. It's our government. It's our people. Why can't we see it? No more FOIA requests. I just want to see what's happening right freaking now.
Andy?
I like chocolate pie.
He said, I like chocolate. Bye.
I like chocolate
like
pie.
that too.
Oh, it's chocolate. I like chocolate pie.
Sometimes I like apple pie, but I like chocolate the
No,
best.
come on, man. You don't have anything to say to all that?
Yeah, I want to know what I've heard a term being floated around. I don't know what it is, and I'm hoping you can explain it. The Internet of Things. What is that?
The Internet of Things simply refers to all of the objects that are on the internet. So your phone, sensors, your Ring doorbell, any object that is out there in the world and connected to the internet, like smart home, your Nest, your Alexa, all those things, they're all part of the Internet of Things. So
And they're all
the end point. They're
and
the
they're all
end
spying
point.
on us. Of course.
Well, I mean, technically, they are all providing data. Yeah, so they're designed to spy. That's the point. And I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, but they're designed to, like a Ring doorbell. It's not designed to spy, but it's dual use technology. So, like, yes, it does show you a view of the world right now for your benefit, but it's also technically, you could say, spying on people. The point is that all these things are designed to provide some signal, some information for a business purpose, or ideally a business purpose, security purpose, like security footage. We're all showing up on security footage every time we walk into a federal building or a grocery store. I mean, who has access to all that data? Certain people get access if they want it. So the Internet of Things is all the objects that are connected to the internet. And there are lots of reasons why you would have technology to manage that stuff.
So I had heard, and forgive me because I forget the term. There was a big thing going on in the recent past about people would call 911 on other folks that they didn't like.
Yeah, right.
Swatting. That's what it was. Yes. That scares the crap out of me.
Well, I mean, it certainly should. I think here's one interesting thing, and I'd love to get your perspective, and Lewis as well. Is you think about what we're sort of witnessing here, and there's just a lot of cherry picking that goes on in terms of jurisprudence, in terms of who does what about something, and that's the reasonable part, but it's also the dangerous part if it's really abused. And we're starting to see that now. And where I'm going with this is that if someone calls 911 on someone, you better damn believe the system running that whole operation can see where that person was, at which point in time, which phone number it came from, even if they used, I bet you, and I'd have to talk to a telco expert, but even if they use star 71 or star 16, says star 71, I think, where you intentionally hide your phone number from the receiver, even if you did that, you're going to tell me the 911 system can't figure out where that phone is? I bet it sure can. My point being, why aren't these swatters swatted down almost freaking immediately?
Because they have the Trace Buster. If you've ever seen the big hit.
No, I haven't.
But you bring up a great point. I mean, they flaunt. They talk about with the January 6th issue going on right now, right? They talked about how great their GPS cell phone tracking was to get all these, J6ers, and yet we can't find the pipe bomber. We can't find these other people who clearly were using their cell phones and faces are on camera.
Right.
Here's
Right.
the other thing I'll point out to you too. Before Snowden talked about that stuff, I drove around with it in the back of my truck in Afghanistan. I mean, Snowden already put it out there, so I'm not. Anyway, they talked about how it worked, and once you get one phone number, that's all you need, because once I have your phone number, I can do whatever I want to your phone, and I have every number in your phone. And if I have every number in your phone, well, once I have that, I have every number in that person's phone. And I said, so it's a giant cascade. They said, really, all you need is one phone number, and then by about a week, you'll have an entire city, right? You'll have everybody's information that you need, sort of the way that it pans out. But it's interesting, the way the technology advances and their desire to spy on us. Like, as we develop ways around it, they develop ways around our ways around, right? So the way it was working before was, people would take their battery out of their cell phone, right? And then you were okay. Well, now we can turn your hub battery on and listen to you through that, until that dies. That battery that for those of you that know what I'm talking about with a hub battery, it's a hold up. They call it a hold up battery, a hub battery. And basically what it does is keep your device powered as you change out your batteries, and that's why you wouldn't lose information in the device itself.
Oh, right, right.
Little holder of energy. It doesn't have a lot of energy, but now if we have your phone number, we can turn your hub battery. You can't take it. So, like you said, you cannot have a cell phone with you. You
No.
cannot have a watch with you. If you're trying to walk around and not be seen, that is very, very, very hard. And Ray Kurzweil, and I'd love to hear your comment on this, you and Andy. And Ray Kurzweil said, you can opt out, you cannot be, plugged in, but all that's going to do is highlight you even more.
Well, that is, that is interesting.
That's a good point.
I mean, the good news is that it's still very difficult to manage all that data, and there are choke points in personnel and things of this nature. But the bad news is that you can be targeted, man. Make no mistake about it. Any human being in America right now can be targeted for good or ill, and there's your data footprints are everywhere. Like, it's all over the place. And I think that what's going to happen here in the near future with these large language models like ChatGPT and Bard, and there are others out there, it's an arms race. There's an arms race right now that is at a speed and ferocity like I've never seen before. And I've seen arms races in the data world for sure. But this thing is just off the charts for enterprise uses, for small to mid-sized business, for interpersonal, just consumer stuff. It's everywhere. And we are getting over our skis a little bit. That's what happened with ChatGPT and hallucinating, and the New York Times guy having it tell him he should divorce his wife, all this stuff. But he led it down the rabbit hole, is the point. He led that down the rabbit hole. So it's important to know what these technologies do and how they work. But man, we're gonna be spied on. Just accept the fact that everyone's gonna know where you are at basically every point in time. And if you run afoul of the powers that be, then someone's gonna spill the beans on you. It's just gonna happen. So as long as you
Mr.
don't get too
Breeze.
important, as long as you don't get too important, you'll be fine.
Mr. Breeze, did you say something about that the AI prompted the gentleman to get a divorce?
Yeah, the New York Times reporter who covered ChatGPT right out of the bag, he was playing
Well,
around with it, and it told him that he should divorce his wife, and it said it wanted him to love it and all this stuff. But that's
well, let,
because he was he was giving it prompts along the lines of, who are you? And you look at the whole thread. He published the whole thread. But the thing to remember with ChatGPT is it's just a predictive engine for language. So what they did is they used this incredibly complex model to absorb as much text as possible from the interwebs, from whatever they could find it, and then they vectorized it, meaning they turned all letters, words, sentences, phrases, paragraphs, chapters, headlines. They turned them all into mathematical operators, basically, or basically converted them to numbers. And the reason they did that was so you can do all sorts of statistical analysis on it. And they used that to be able to create an engine that would accurately predict what words you wanted to see based upon the prompt. And so the downside of these models that they built is that they don't really have moorings of what's actually true versus what it just heard somewhere. Basically, it doesn't have the capacity to know the difference between rumors or fact. And so I even know a guy who was invited to be part of ChatGPT's engine, their whole team, and he turned them down because he said you're going to have this problem. They didn't believe it, and he turned out to be right.
I'll tell you what, I was very skeptical at first, but AI's telling me to get a divorce. I'm sold. I'm on board 100%. Holy smokes.
Right. I mean, I think AI, I mean, for what it's worth, gentlemen, I think AI will, in fact, take over most government processes and will take over most business processes. The key will be transparency into understanding what it does and understanding why it did what it did, and having human beings in the loop to manage it and control it. But, like, by and large, for many, many, many business functions and government functions, the machines are going to be so much better than people at just getting stuff done. A machine can execute 10,000 transactions in the time it takes one person to say hello.
No
So
one's used to the government doing anything. That's going to be a shock in itself. I mean, and
That's
then to be done
right.
efficiently. I mean, you're looking at upending the entire world here.
What,
well, I mean, you know, it could. It's very interesting what could happen here. It's very, very interesting. My prediction is that in the future, government workers will be like Uber drivers, people who are certified to do a certain task and log into the system when and where they can, when they want to work, to see what's available. Just like an Uber driver picks up whoever is available, you would log in and you're registered to do accounting services. Okay, review these transactions and make sure they're okay. And that's what you do. And you get tracked and you get paid according to what you do. And it's all transparent, meaning like you can witness what this person did and what that person did. Obviously, you can anonymize the names so you protect people, but the system will know who logged in and did this work. And doing so, you deconstruct and reconstruct the entire organizational hierarchy of government processes, and you externalize it. Like you let anyone anywhere who wants to participate can, through an app. And it could be anything from transportation stuff to reviewing contracts or whatever, but just turn the whole system inside out, make it like a crowdsourced but governed process. And to me, that's the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
all I'm going to say is, since they're listening anyway, man, I'm really craving a large pepperoni pizza. If you could have that delivered, I'd really appreciate it. Because I'm on probably, I don't know, 17 to 20 lists, I'm sure, at this point.
Well, you know what's funny? I was having a conversation last night with our mutual friend before I got my verbal warning from Xbox. Anyway, we were talking about, and you know, this thought occurred to me. Throughout history, there have been those who are okay with being ruled, right? And I'm not here to say there anything negative about them, right? I mean, there's certainly been times in my life where I was like, just make the decisions for me, man. I don't care, you know? Right? And then there are people who want to rule and consolidate power. And I think now you have you know, this volatile time where there's political, you know, upheaval, you know, where people were really polarized, and this emerging technology. And I think, you know, some of these elites, like in the World Economic Forum and all these other things, are seeing an opportunity to grab power, and it's irritating people who are watching. But I was talking to my friend, I was telling him, you know, if we do truly believe in history, and we do think history rhymes and repeats itself, you know, if we truly believe that, you know, then it's these people's grandchildren who will be beheaded. I mean, that's what happens, man. These people consolidate power, they rule from a roost. People get upset, and then they drag their grandkids out and execute them. It happened all throughout England until the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, well, there are very, very strange things happening now, and I'll give you guys an anecdote that I think is truly remarkable. I was in San Francisco with the wife and kid trying to get their passports to go to Europe last year, and the best place we could find was San Francisco. It was an absolute ordeal getting an actual meeting at an agency to do this thing, which used to be easy, but now they're all behind. They're all behind schedule, and they blame COVID. But we got the meeting. We go out there, and the day before, as we're preparing, I was walking with my kid back from the store, the grocery store, and of course we had to walk past Skid Row because we're right there by the passport agency. And I mean, open drug dealing everywhere you look, just decrepit. People passed out. Probably someone was laying there dead. Who knows? And I see a cop car pull up, and I said, "Oh, Leshy, watch this. Let's see what they do." And the lights come on, and this cop car pulls up right next to us. I mean, right next to us. Cop rolls the window down. There are 4 cops in the car. 4 cops. I've never seen 4 cops riding around in a single car before.
2 in the back
Four-
seat.
2 in the back seat, 2 in the front seat. 4 cops. All right, and they roll up, and the cop rolls the window down and says to the guy standing right next to me, he goes, "Hey, would you please stop stealing video games from department stores? We know it's you." Right? And I was like, I just saw a cop beg a robber to not steal. Like, what the hell is going on in this world? And it's because they don't prosecute him if it's under X amount of dollars. I mean, if that's not a strategic maneuver to take down a country, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and then you have Eric Adams, out in New York, like immigrants are the foundation, but they're destroying New York. But they're the foundation. But boy, we can't handle anymore. You look at the same speech.
But are we getting a little bit of feedback, maybe? Anyway,
So,
yeah, Charles is in the room. Let me say hey to Tim real quick. Tim, thanks for popping in. Tim's a great guy.
Yeah, I've met him twice.
And then Charles, well, I don't know what he's posting in there, but that's Charles. I know Charles personally, and what he just texted me a picture of himself actually. So
Nice.
Anyway,
But that's I think he might have had a little technical difficulty there. I don't know if he's back. Cool breeze. But anyway, like we're saying, but nice people they a lot of this double speak. But going back to what we're talking about, the data that they're collecting is allowing what I guess the point that I'm trying to make is the data they're collecting is allowing them to do these things. They can speak these ways. They know that even though it doesn't make sense to us because we pay attention, the sentences they just said were structured because they've been polled that way. And these liberal talking points that we think are insane to us are hitting nerves and cues, on people who are attuned to that language. And I didn't used to believe this, because I'd always hear people claim that, certain things were a dog whistle, right? Like this is a dog whistle. And I thought, well, that makes no sense on 2 fronts. One is, if it was a dog whistle, humans wouldn't hear it, right? I mean, so I don't get it. or I guess what but the other thing you're trying to say is, well, only certain people get it. Well, okay, if only certain people get it, how did you figure it out, you bigot? right? How'd you fucking figure it out? Oh, that's another FCC fine.
oh jeez, man.
Anyway, but I always thought that though, like again, like when I used to watch To Catch a Predator, every episode I always said, is somebody just checking up on those guys in the van pretending to be girls? Is somebody following them?
Do you mean when you were on To Catch a Predator?
I was never on To Catch a Predator, but by God, that show was hilarious, man.
Real quick, this is totally not related to the topic, but I was doing another show last night with my friend Ryan, and we got on the topic of Chris Hansen and the other, and he got off track and he said, "Well, wait a minute, where was I?" I said, "You were in the kitchen with Chris Hansen there, buddy," and I guess you had to be there. It was a lot funnier then. Anyway.
But you're right, though. I mean, if you ever accidentally pull into the wrong driveway and there's a girl with a hamper saying, "Just come in, there's iced tea on the counter, I'll be right down." Just no, right. Turn around, man, leave. You don't need directions that bad. You're about to get tackled by some fat man in a ghillie suit. Just go. Don't stay there.
that he probably bought and didn't make himself, but that's
No, I
for another
guarantee he didn't make
topic.
it himself. It looks good. It looks too good.
That's right, another topic, another show. Anyway,
It's fun. When I saw that guy, the first time it like occurred to me, that's a man in a ghillie suit. I didn't see him in the beginning. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that. I mean, well, first of all, I never expected Chris Hansen to come around the corner going, "Is your name Cock Dribbler 478?" What? And then these fat guys are like, no, that's not me. Are you sure? Are you sure you're not Cock Dribbler 478? And on 12/13 at 4 a.m., did you not text a 7-year-old? And you're like, oh my god! And then he's reading it. You're like, oh.
I couldn't watch that show, man. I watched a couple episodes.
Oh, they busted a sailor.
Shocking.
Yeah, or a Marine one time. They had a priest a couple of times. I mean, they caught them all, man. Caught them all.
Did you say a priest?
Yeah.
I'm not even going there. That's too easy. Anyway, I'd like to get back to Mr. Breeze if we could. Mr. Cool Breeze.
Well, I'm still here, man. I'm still here listening to you, Wildman.
I'm sorry. I
Go
was
off
going
on
off.
your
You should
tangent.
cut me off.
It was too entertaining. Why would I? So I don't know. And if you are uncomfortable answering this question in any way, shape, or form, please don't feel bad about saying so. I don't know what your religious I don't know what your religious background is, but from a Christian perspective, moving into the chapter of Revelations and talking about the mark of the beast, what is this? Are we heading that way with this stuff, or? I mean, and again, if you're not comfortable, don't answer.
Oh, no. It's totally fine. I'm actually, I've joked with Lewis that I'm actually part of a new religion.
Oh,
And it sounds cool and then creepy, right? You're like, what's that all about?
please go on, Mr. Koresh.
The weird thing is that lots of other people out there are part of the same religion. They just don't know it yet. And it's called Raised Catholic. That's what I am. I'm raised Catholic. But I do believe in God. I am definitely a Christian in that sense. And I think that we are knocking on the door between nuclear weapons and genetic engineering and all the very, very odd things happening. So-called gender affirming care. When I heard those words, I was like, what?
Pittsburgh just passed a resolution. They are a gender affirming care sanctuary city.
Oh my
Well,
Lord.
it's in the Affordable Care Act, right? So why is that in there? Why is that in there? That's a very strange thing to put into an act. And let's get back to the whole artificial intelligence, ChatGPT thing. Here's the beautiful thing about this. These engines are so powerful, you can take a 2,000 page document, feed it into the large language model and say, give me a 2-page summary, and boom, it'll do it. Then you can say, give me a 10-page summary, boom, it'll do that. You can say, focus on this aspect of the document, focus on that aspect of the document. So my call out to our fellow citizens listening out there is start playing around with these things. Yes, you're being watched. Yes, you're being monitored. When you play those video games, that to me is just unbelievable. I think it's crazy. I think it's going to be the downfall. I think there's going to be a big backlash on that, just like there was on Bud Light, and just like there was on Target. I think the backlashes are coming, and I just hope that we have free and fair elections.
What? It's funny. My father was a lifelong conservative, and after he passed a couple years ago, I found out he'd voted 3 times for the Democratic Party. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's funny you say. I just got that.
wow!
Like,
really?
well, I'm going through my head like, well, I mean, maybe he thought Clinton was cool. I mean, I can't see why he would. Anyway.
I was just trying to get the crickets to be quiet.
Yeah, then I got it. But it's funny you mentioned that about feeding documents into ChatGPT. One of the singers recently just sued one of the manufacturers of AI because somebody said, "Hey, summarize her book," and it did. and she's like, "Hey, that's my stuff." Like it was like basically like it like wrote her book for him out on the internet for free.
Yeah,
So
well, I
they were saying, "Hey,
mean,
you know,
you
you got to do something about that."
remember Google years ago now had this effort to scan all the books and publish all the books ever found and just publish it, and everyone freaked out about copyright, which I understand. But truth be told, this is it's a very dicey area. There are obviously lawsuits out there. What that really means, who knows? But the cat's out of the bag, as my cat meows at me. This cat is out of the bag,
Timing's
and
everything.
there's not much you can do about it. The first case law I heard said that generated AI content cannot be copyrighted, but that's just someone's opinion. And what does it mean? Like words in a row. Like it's going to be harder and harder to enforce that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And it's
copyright
just
laws. I was just gonna say, copyright law is interesting because I finished a book on Martin Luther, and they were talking about part of the whole reason his thesis ran was because the printing press had just been invented, so no one even thought about his thesis being repeated because you'd have to hand write it, back in the day.
right.
Um, so they were stunned. The church was stunned by the speed of the thesis because of the printing press and lack of copyright law. People were reproducing and reproducing and reproducing.
How interesting is that? And now you have, as you just discovered tonight, on in the gaming world, you have
Yes.
real-time censorship and parenting. And if that's not communism, what is?
Yeah, don't
When the
make it.
government steps in to control how you think, that is communism.
Yes. Yeah, you can't call people who turn their back on you in a gunfight an anti-LGBTQIATP plus slur. And then they
So
cannot get upset that you used an anti-LGBTQTIAT2 plus slur.
let me tell you, I was in Austin, Texas with the wife at a beautiful hotel at the Fairmount. I love the Fairmount. It's a beautiful hotel, brand new hotel right downtown. We met this guy who was drunk, like for sure. He's a local. He's dating a trust fund girl, apparently. They're obviously partiers. He was obnoxious, but he was funny. He was smart, but obnoxious for sure. And was running around with his girlfriend's dog. And then later I saw him in the lobby running around being crazy. And these three big goons come up and they just confront him with me right there talking to him. And they're like, go get your stuff. We're going to follow you to your room. You've been kicked out of the hotel. And he's like, why? Because of my dog? No, because you used a racial slur. And I was standing there. I'm like, well, I don't want to get ejected from the hotel, so I'm not going to really say much about any of this other
Right.
than to look at my friend like, sorry about that. But in my mind, I was like, which racial slur was it? Like, because I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Did he call someone a Lugan? That's slang for Lithuanian. And now, I would be offended if someone called me a Lugan, or my mother told me I should be, but I don't know if I would be. But I was like, can I just get the terminology, like to walk around and know which are the bad words, But he got kicked out for using a term.
Yeah.
I'm like, and it's a nice hotel. Like they lost money on that gig.
Wow.
Yeah. My wife taught me a slur for Japanese people. She's Japanese. I had never heard before. And it's funny. I'm listening to a book now, Emperor of Japan, about the Meiji Restoration, and they just covered where it came from.
Oh wow.
Excellent.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But again, you don't want to trip these algorithms off. But yeah, it was an interesting topic to hear, and based off of what they're saying, yeah, I understand why that's a slur.
Oh, uh-oh. You know what that
Producers
means.
in our ear.
You know what that means.
Story of the day.
Well, we actually
cut
skipped
that.
Story of the Week. We're going to cover veterans helping veterans. And I have a organization that I would like to cover this evening, and it's actually a local organization here in the St. Louis area. But they're called Heroes Care. And what they do, it's a wonderful, wonderful organization. They get donations from Amazon and some other places. And what they do is they take care of the service members that are about to deploy, take care of the members while they're deployed, when they come back to transition back, as well as their families. And they've recently moved to a new facility, and they do so much more now. They've got actually somebody in there that cuts hair for veterans now. And they do a lot. They've got a VSO there, a veteran service officer that's in there to help with cases and whatnot. But check them out on their website. It's heroescare.org, and it's a fantastic organization. They take volunteers. They probably get, I don't know, close to 50 to 100 pallets a day from Amazon that they have to go through, sort out, and then put in their little store or set aside for members that are deploying and whatnot. So they're always looking for help. And it's a great cause. So again, Heroes Care, check them out on the web. They're a local organization here in St. Louis, but they ship and they reach all over the world.
God bless them. That's awesome.
Indeed, sir. Indeed. Well, it looks like we're pretty close to the top of the hour. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I truly mean that, because I didn't know anything about this topic before this evening, and I feel like I've learned quite a bit. So, Mr. Breeze, I really appreciate it there.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Yeah. Hey, Eric. Before we close out, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to just say whatever, close it out, say whatever you want to say. We can cut that.
That's okay. Don't worry. Remember Racing Arizona? Like, you hear that? We're using code names.
I do remember that.
One of the greatest movies ever. Nicolas Cage, once again. There you go. You got a panty on your head.
He was good until he started buying castles and then went bankrupt. And started making
it all
crap
falls
movies
apart.
to cover his bills.
It all falls apart in the end. Well, that hubris could be macrocosmic, and I just hope that it's not for us. I'll tell you what, not to end on a dour note, but there was a story the other day I read on Citizen Free Press, which that guy probably gets warnings from playing video games these days too, based upon his opinion of things. He's getting the warnings. But it talked about how the Fed is technically insolvent.
Oh, right. James Rickards said that years ago. He said the math is done. It's all on their website. He said you just have to have a degree in economics, but they're insolvent.
Well, right, but like his point now is like in like the near term, if you look at cash inflows and cash outflows, they're designed to be the Federal Reserve banks, the 8 or 12 of them, whatever it is. Right. They are designed to be profitable because they can print money and they make money for printing money, right? So that in and of itself is a bit of a strange incentive. So you make money to print money, okay?
Yeah, the agreement is weird.
Who gets the money?
Yeah.
Well, how does that work?
Well, if you read their agreement, first off, their shareholders are paid first. Then their accounts are paid second. Then whatever is left over after that is placed back into the treasury.
Gee, that seems fair.
It can be called the Fed.
How interesting, right? Because it's like a public-private partnership, right? And I remember actually I did a webinar with a lady, a very nice lady named Amy Poster. Amy Poster, I will be moderating the webcast with you. That's what she said to me. She worked for the Obama administration, and she worked for as a special advisor. And she was telling me, she's like, Eric, I tried to balance the numbers of the Fed, and they didn't match. And I was like, oh, really? Well, that's kind of interesting. And, Rand Paul's out there saying we need to audit the Fed. They're like, no, leave us alone. Well, let me tell you something, my friends. Let me tell you something for darn sure. If you take just basic transactional information from the systems that govern our spending of money by the federals, the federal folks who run this whole operation, if you were to just point these new language models at that information, you would learn all kinds of interesting things, and it would be instantaneously transparent, and we'll know where all the dollars went. What I'm saying is we are on the precipice of the great awakening in terms of awareness of what has happened. because that's what these things are so good at, just absorbing massive amounts of information and then reflecting that back, and doing so in any tone you
Yeah.
want. You can choose
Well,
to
but
use
they're
different
messing with
tones.
the reflectors now. You know, that's the problem. They're messing with the reflectors now.
Yes, well, that's true.
You
Sure.
know, and people, and
Yeah.
here's the thing: people warned us about this years ago and said we should be writing laws about this now, but instead
Yeah.
we're arguing
Here
about
it is.
nonsense. You know,
Yeah.
and here
Here
it
it is.
is. Yep, here it is. Yeah. So I wonder what's going to happen, and a topic for another time because we do gotta say our goodbyes. But I wonder what's going to happen when Yuval Harari's prediction comes true, and there are 50 million useless people. Like I'm one of them. Like you can't take me at age 50 and teach me to be a computer programmer. That's not going to happen.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, all right. But Eric, I'll give you a last chance to say goodbye if you want to. Then I'm going to say goodbye, and Andy's going to close us out.
Well, hey, thanks so much for your time, gentlemen. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you listening to me run on about these issues. I would say the number one, transparency. We need to see what's happening. There's nothing to stop us, and I just want everyone to be able to participate in a meaningful way. And that's like the government Uber driver, basically. That's the long-term vision. Everyone who wants to work should be able to work for whatever the fair amount is. It's all tracked online. All this stuff can be optimized now with automation and AI and analytics. There's a whole good side to this stuff. It's like the 80% good, 20% bad. Just watch out for the 20%.
Yep. Thank you so much. Hey, and then I want to say thanks for coming on. And I hope to have you back again where we can talk a little bit more about some of this stuff. Maybe have some, quarterly jump-ins or something. Because it is a ever evolving world and something that, can benefit everybody paying attention to and staying on top of. So thanks again. Thanks for coming on. And Andy, as always, thanks for running everything, brother.
Sometimes, man. Sometimes I'll tell you. No, seriously, Eric. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And you have an open invitation anytime you'd like to come on the show. And with that being said, I think I'm gonna go get some chocolate pie, if you know what I'm saying. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.
What Harold changed his name to?
Hook 'em horn.